a boy named Daniel finds a taser on the beach while on his usual morning run. As he mistakenly gets injured by the taser, he decides to keep it before people start to suspect that he's up to something. However, he's unaware that the taser could make him a prime suspect in a missing person case. A few days earlier, an astronaut named Ryan says her goodbyes to her family as she's about to leave on a space mission. She tells her kids, Alex and Haley, to take care of each other, and the kids also tell her to be careful on her space trip. Just then, Haley takes a group selfie of the family, after which Ryan leaves. Shortly after, Haley and Alex invite a few friends over to watch their mom's satellite launch with their dad, Carter. As they sound excited to see the satellite successfully commence its liftoff, the room suddenly goes silent when it explodes. Carter and his kids are shocked by this, and it is also reported in the news that Ryan has died from the explosion. 8 months later, Alex starts practicing for his upcoming trials to gain admission into a prestigious school called Greenhouse Academy. While he's at it, Haley hangs out with her friends and also complains about how Alex's basketball training disturbs her. As her friends ask why Alex is so obsessed with getting into Greenhouse Academy, Haley says he's doing it to honor their mom because she also attended the school when she was younger. Almost immediately, Alex breaks something in Haley's room with his ball, and this gets her angry. As they argue about it in front of their dad, Carter doesn't seem to care. While the kids seem to have moved on, Carter still hasn't gotten over the loss of his wife. The next day, Alex needs to go for his trials at Greenhouse Academy, so he calls Carter to take him. However, Carter is not in a state to go anywhere. With this, Haley offers to take her brother, and he agrees. Shortly after, Alex and Haley arrive at the school. While Alex is excited, Haley doesn't care about the school. Just then, Alex spots Daniel and recognizes him from the school's brochure as the captain of one of the school's clubhouses called the Eagles. Alex goes to greet him, but Daniel and his friend, Parker, sound very mean to him. Haley interrupts and defends her brother, but Alex eventually takes her away because he doesn't want her to embarrass him. While all the applicants head to a classroom to take their written test, a girl named Jackie is brought in with cuffs. Just then, the teacher gives the applicants all the instructions they need. Before they start the test, she also invites a boy named Leo to the classroom with his guitar. She then mentions that Leo, who is the captain of another clubhouse named the Ravens, will be playing his instrument loudly because part of the test is to see how many of the applicants can still pass despite the distraction. Following this, Leo starts playing, but Jackie doesn't like the whole idea. Elsewhere, Haley sees a girl crying because she failed the test. She tells the crying girl that the school is not worth it, but two students, Brooke and Sophie, hear her. They don't like how she spoke about their school, but Haley doesn't care. Shortly after, the school owner, Louis, and his son, Jason, who is also the school's dean, pass by the test venue to ask about Jackie. After they learn that she's still doing her test, Jason asks his dad why he wants Jackie at the school despite what she did. Louis then mentions that even though Jackie robbed a bank, it was to make a point because the bank wanted to close a shelter. He also mentions that he has made a deal with a judge to pardon Jackie if she gets accepted into the school. Jason still doesn't get this, but he says nothing more. Just as a boy named Max finishes his test, Jackie takes off her cuffs with a clip and stops Leo from playing because the loud music is already annoying her. This gets her in trouble though, and she's taken back to detention. Shortly after, Alex passes his test, but as he's about to leave for his basketball trials, he sounds nervous. However, Haley says she knows he'll do well because he's just as determined as their mom, who has a portrait in the school. Just then, he heads for the basketball trials and ends up impressing Louis and Jason, who realize that he's Ryan's son. While Alex continues to impress, Daniel and Parker don't seem to like him because they want someone taller for their team. Daniel then meets Louis to ask if he can challenge Alex in a one-on-one contest. Louis agrees, and as they start the challenge, Alex does very well. Daniel feels embarrassed, so he insults Alex and also mentions his mom's death. This gets Alex pissed, and he starts a fight with Daniel. Before things escalate, Jason stands up and tells Alex to leave immediately. As he leaves, Haley shows up to defend him, saying Daniel must have said something to trigger Alex's reaction. Despite knowing she's also Ryan's daughter, Lewis says fighting is not tolerated at the school. Haley then calls them out for sending Alex away while allowing a bully like Daniel to stay. As she leaves the school with Alex, Louis follows them and tells Haley that he likes her raw honesty. He then says that both of them will be accepted into the school, with Alex joining the Eagles while Haley will join the Ravens. Haley says she's not interested, but Alex convinces her to consider it. Louis then tells her that he's willing to agree to a trial period of 30 days if she passes the assessment test. He also mentions that after 30 days, she can leave if she wants to. Following this, Haley agrees to take the test. Jackie is also brought back to take the test, and the two girls pass. Shortly after, Louis organizes a ceremony for all the new intakes. After the ceremony, Daniel comes over to ask Alex if he'd like to attend the welcome party at the Eagles Clubhouse later that night, and Haley tells him to accept. Elsewhere, a strange man breaks into Carter's house while he's asleep. He then gains access to Carter's laptop and deletes several files. In the process, the family photo falls, but Carter still doesn't wake up. Shortly after, the man finishes up with what he's doing, so he leaves. A while later, Carter wakes up and notices that the position of the family photo has changed. He then realizes that someone must have broken into the house. Back at the Greenhouse Academy, Haley texts her brother a goodnight message, but he doesn't respond. However, it turns out that he's in an arm wrestling contest with Parker. Even though he appears to be winning initially, he eventually loses when he hears Brooke making fun of him for getting a message from his sister. As everyone then leaves, Alex looks sad. After a while, Haley goes to the Eagles Clubhouse to check on Alex, but she meets Brooke, who tells her that ravens are not allowed in. As she's then leaving, Haley sees Louis going there to greet Brooke, who happens to be his daughter. Shortly after, the students are called upon for an opening challenge. When they're all in the classroom, Louis gives them a task to find a missing key, after which he promises the winning group a special treat. The students immediately start working with their clues, and after a while, Haley and Leo find the key. However, Haley prefers to give the key to Alex so that he can get on the good side of his teammates. Despite this, Alex refuses the offer, but Sophie sees this and records it on her phone. She then shows it to Daniel and the others, who blame Alex for betraying his team and making them lose the contest. Elsewhere, Carter calls his friend and old colleague at the FBI, Eric, to help him check out his apartment for any sign of forced entry. However, Eric thinks Carter is just making things up because he's still not over Ryan's death. He also says it's why Carter lost his job at the FBI. Carter doesn't like this, and he tells Eric to leave. Back at the school, Daniel bullies Alex while playing basketball. Haley sees this, so she defends her brother. As Daniel makes fun of Alex for always letting his sister defend him, he tells Haley to start minding her business. Haley feels disappointed, but Alex looks happy because it has suddenly made Daniel and the others like him. Meanwhile, a lady named Judy meets with the man that broke into Carter's house. After learning that he deleted all the files she asked, she pays him for a job well done. Later that day, Judy goes to Greenhouse Academy to check up on her son, Daniel, who looks happy to see her. As she then jokes with Daniel and his friends, she sees Alex and mentions that it's the first time she's seeing him. Daniel says he's a newcomer, and as he mentions his name, she looks bothered. Just then, she goes to meet Jason to complain about letting Ryan's kids into the school. Jason says they won't be a problem, but Judy says she doesn't care and that he needs to find a way to get them out. The next day, Daniel starts to feel some serious pain in his leg. As he's using a pain relief drug, his girlfriend Brooke shows up behind him, so he quickly hides the drug and pretends like everything is fine. Brooke notices that something is wrong with him, but he says he's okay. Elsewhere, Alex starts ignoring Haley to keep being on the good side of his teammates at the Eagles Clubhouse. Haley is not too happy about it, but Leo says Alex probably needs some space. Later that day, while she's looking sad, Leo then offers to change her mood. After she agrees, he then takes her to the music room where he teaches her how to play some chords on the guitar. Meanwhile, the FBI chief, Diggs, informs Eric about an update on a case about a missing park ranger. He says the park ranger's taser has been emitting signals near the Greenhouse Academy and that Eric needs to find it before any of the students does. Following this, Eric goes to the school and starts interviewing some of the school's employees. As Jackie sees the FBI agents on the premises, she tries to hide, but Max sees her. Before he can ask what's going on, she just runs away. Much later, Daniel and the other Eagles tell Alex that they need his help in breaking into the Ravens clubhouse. As he wonders what he has to do, Daniel tells him to steal Haley's digital key. He immediately refuses to do it, but as they all seem to hate him again, he agrees to do it. Later that day, he then meets Haley and pretends to be interested in making peace with her. She sounds happy with this, but as they hug, he steals her key and replaces it with a fake one. The Eagles are happy with Alex, and that night they enter the Ravens clubhouse to paint and wreck the place. Elsewhere, Eric doesn't get any useful information from the employees at the school. Because of this, he says he needs to question the students, but Lewis refuses to let him do it unless he has reasonable evidence to show that the school is connected. Just then, Eric goes outside with his partner Perry, and together they find a hole in the school's fence. With this, Lewis then agrees to cooperate. Eric asks if there's any student that could have taken the taser, and almost immediately, Jason suggests that it might be Jackie. The next morning, the Ravens wake up to see the mess in their room. Before they clean up, Louis comes in with Eric and Perry. As Eric enters the room, Haley looks happy to see him because she knows him as her dad's close friend. Louis then asks for Jackie, but none of them seem to know where she is. After Louis leaves, Max mentions that he saw Jackie running away from the FBI agents when they arrived. Shortly after, she shows up and they ask where she went. She says she went surfing, but her teammates still look suspicious of her. She soon gets summoned by Louis, who asks if she knows anything about the taser. She says she's innocent, but Eric says he needs her to take a polygraph test to confirm she's not lying. She refuses to take it because she believes they'll still not believe her due to her troubled past. As she's then being escorted out of the school, the Ravens see her, and Haley asks what's happening. When she's informed that Jackie refused to take a polygraph test, Haley says it's unfair to let only her take it. Following this, she and all the Ravens volunteer to take the test to protect Jackie. Just then, the tests are carried out, and it confirms that none of them knows about the taser. Elsewhere, Brooke gets suspicious of Daniel, so she decides to check his locker. She then finds a master locker key and uses it to open his locker. Much to her surprise, she finds the pain relief drug and wonders why Daniel is using it. Later that day, Daniel sees Louis speaking to the FBI agents about the missing taser. As they leave, he then heads to a nearby beach and appears to have the taser with him. After pretending to be doing some exercises, he throws the taser into the ocean, but Brooke sees him. That night, Haley notices that her digital key is not working, so she tells Alex to check it for her. As he does so, he finds out that she's with a fake one. He also discovers that her real one was used to break into the Ravens clubhouse. She gets pissed and immediately runs to confront Alex, who doesn't deny it. He also tells Haley to leave him alone. Following this, Haley decides to leave the school and return home. Before she leaves, she meets Louis and informs him that she's leaving because the school is not for her. He, however, mentions that she's free to come back anytime. She also tells him to help her inform Alex, who eventually looks shocked to hear that his sister is gone. Elsewhere, Daniel prepares a special dinner for Brooke. While they're eating, Brooke asks what Daniel was doing at the beach, and he says he was only doing some exercises and throwing stones into the ocean. Brooke asks why he'd be throwing stones, and he says he does it to clear his head. The next day, a fisherman finds the missing taser after it washed back up to the beach. Shortly after, Brooke sees Daniel limping, so she asks what's wrong. He says it's a leg cramp, but she doesn't believe him. She also mentions that she saw the drug in his locker, but this gets him angry because he thinks she's invading his privacy. Meanwhile, Haley arrives at home, but she sees that Carter is still not doing well. Later on, Haley goes around the house and sees how messy the kitchen looks. She complains about it to Carter and also mentions that she's not happy with how he has been behaving since Ryan died. A few hours later, Carter says sorry to Haley and promises to change. He then tells her that Leo is around to see her. When they meet, Leo says he has been worried about her and that he was shocked to hear that she left. After a while, he then encourages her to stop bothering too much about her brother. He also advises her to return to the school, and she agrees. Elsewhere, Louis is given an update on the missing taser, so he tells Haley. As she hears that the taser has been found on the beach, Haley looks worried because she thinks Daniel had something to do with it. Later that day, Judy arrives at the school to watch her son play a basketball game. During the game, Daniel plays so well, but he starts bleeding from his leg wound. The coach sees this and tells him to come off so that Alex can replace him, but he refuses. To continue to be on Daniel's good side, Alex also tells the coach to let the team captain keep his spot. Following this, Daniel stays on and wins the game for his team. As he then thanks Alex for his kind gesture earlier, Daniel falls to the ground and passes out. He is immediately rushed to the hospital, and shortly after, the doctor comes out to inform Judy and Louis that Daniel is already stable. Judy asks when he can be released, but the doctor says it depends on the taser barb that was found in his leg. As the doctor also mentions that he'll have to report it to the police because it's standard procedure for barb wounds, Judy looks shocked as she wonders how her son got injured by a taser. She soon goes in to check on Daniel, and while she's gone, Brooke tells Louis about how she saw her boyfriend throwing the taser away. Louis gets angry and asks why she didn't tell him earlier, but she says she wasn't sure until the doctor mentioned the taser barb. Elsewhere, Eric and Diggs get a report on Daniel's taser barb injury. Diggs then informs Eric to let him know after the barb has been analyzed. Eric looks surprised because he doesn't think it's a big deal, but Diggs says it's worth investigating since they found the barb on the same beach the ranger went missing. Shortly after, Judy tries to bribe the doctor into giving up the taser barb before it gets to the FBI. The doctor then rejects her offer and mentions that the barb has left the hospital. As he leaves, Brooke appears to have heard everything they said, and she wonders why Judy would want the barb. Just then, Daniel wakes up and narrates how he found the taser on the beach. He also mentions that after he got injured by the taser, he got scared and kept it for a while before throwing it away when the FBI agents came. A while later, Diggs meets Eric again to inform him that Perry has just had an accident that got his whole car on fire. Since he's the one who also went to get the barb, the chief mentions that the evidence is gone. As he walks away, Eric calls Judy to inform her that he has gotten Perry to destroy evidence. She then thanks him and says she'll send him some money. Elsewhere, Max gets attracted to a girl named Emma, who is really good at chess. As he seems to have a crush on her, Jackie offers to help him get her. Meanwhile, Louis is informed that the evidence is gone, so he goes to tell Judy, Daniel, and Brooke. Judy pretends to just be hearing about it, and Daniel is also very happy. However, this sounds really suspicious to Brooke, who can't understand how the evidence got destroyed just after Judy tried to bribe the doctor to get it. Before they leave the hospital, though, Louis tells Daniel that he won't be captain of the Eagles any longer. Daniel is shocked by this, but Louis says he can't let an irresponsible person continue to be captain. Elsewhere, Diggs asks Perry about what happened to his car. As he explains it, Diggs doesn't sound convinced, but he says nothing. After leaving Diggs's office, Eric then gives Perry his share of the money Judy sent. Meanwhile, Leo and Haley spend more time together in the music room, and after a while, they kiss. The next day, Daniel returns to school and says he'll continue to be captain of the Eagles. However, Louis comes in and tells the whole team that they'll have to pick a new captain. Daniel is not too happy about it, but Louis doesn't care. Much later, when Louis meets Judy to inform her about why he demoted Daniel, she says she's actually fine with it because she knows her son did something bad. Louis is shocked by this, but he's happy to see that she agreed with his decision. Later that day, Daniel gets angry at Brooke for not speaking to her dad to let him remain captain. Brooke says she doesn't think it will make a difference, but Daniel feels she's against him. Shortly after, when Louis meets with Brooke, she asks if he doesn't think the fire that burnt the evidence was suspicious. He dismisses this suggestion and tells her not to be a conspiracy theorist. He also thanks her for not trying to convince him to reinstate Daniel as captain. Elsewhere, Leo starts acting weird around Haley. He also refuses to talk about their kiss, as he keeps changing the topic every time she mentions it. This gets her worried and disappointed because she actually likes him. When she finally gets him to talk, he says that even though he likes being with her, he doesn't want them to be a couple yet. Later that day, Brooke goes to meet the school's groundskeeper, Marcus, to ask him about the things that could cause a car fire because she thinks the burnt evidence is suspicious. However, he says he's busy and that she needs to leave. Shortly after, Alex advises Daniel to make Parker the next captain so that he'll still have control in the clubhouse. Daniel likes the idea, so he asks Parker about it. Even though Parker doesn't sound so sure about it, Daniel convinces him to do it. A while later, Daniel then announces to the other members of the Eagles clubhouse that he'd like Parker to replace him. However, Sophie doesn't like the idea, and she tells Daniel not to force anyone on them. As he says there's no one else interested in becoming captain, Sophie says she's interested. She also mentions that she and Parker can begin their campaigns, after which an election will be carried out. Shortly after, Daniel sees Brooke helping Sophie, so he believes she's against him. However, she says she doesn't think Parker is a good fit for the role. A while later, Diggs asks Eric for footage of Perry's burning car because he still thinks there's something suspicious about it. As he then checks it, he sees Perry parking his car by the side of the road, after which the video stops playing. Eric then says the footage must have stopped recording due to a maintenance issue. Much later, Marcus goes near the beach and uses a secret door to enter a cave where he meets Judy. She then asks if he has erased all the CCTV footage of Perry's burning car, and he says he has. The next day, Louis appears to be in a good mood, and he tells Marcus that NASA has invited the school to a satellite launch in honor of Ryan. Marcus gets nervous as he hears this, and after Lewis leaves, he goes to meet Judy in the cave. He then tells her about the NASA satellite launch and how it will be able to monitor their entire operation in space. This gets Judy worried, but she eventually suggests hacking the NASA servers to stop the launch, just like they did with Ryan's satellite. Marcus doesn't want to do it again, but Judy says it has to be done, because she'll need someone to be at NASA to get close to their servers. Judy tells Jason to convince Louis to let him go for the satellite launch in his place. Jason doesn't think Louis will agree to it, but Judy threatens him that if he wants to remain on the project, he needs to find a way to convince his father. Elsewhere, the campaign for the next captain of the Eagles heats up. While Sophie already has most people on her side, Parker fails to get anyone because he has no plan. Much later, the candidates are asked to prepare for a debate. During the debate, Sophie does very well, and even though Parker tries to embarrass her with one of her secrets, she handles it well, and this leaves Daniel worried because it's now clear that Sophie will win. Elsewhere, Jason asks Louis to let him take his place for the trip to NASA, but he refuses. Jason informs Judy immediately, and she feels disappointed. As she's about to leave the cave, she hears Alex and Haley coming closer, so she runs back inside. Alex and Haley then walk to the front of the cave, which happens to be the location of a meteor Ryan found. After talking about their mom for a while, Alex says sorry for stealing her key, and Haley also apologizes for not letting him handle things on his own. Following this, they return to the school. There, Alex convinces Daniel to let Parker step down and endorse Sophie, so he won't be too embarrassed when she wins the election. He agrees to this, and even though Parker doesn't like the idea, he later endorses Sophie, after which she's named the new captain. Elsewhere, Judy meets Louis and convinces him to let Jason go to NASA for him. After a while, Jason then picks Leo and Haley as the two students who will accompany him to the launch. Haley doesn't look interested since she'll have to spend time with Leo, but Jason says she's a guest of honor at the event because the launch is in Ryan's honor. Meanwhile, Brooke thanks Alex for helping to convince Daniel to let Sophie win. She also says she likes his presence in the house because he's a good influence on Daniel. As they're talking, Daniel sees them and looks jealous. The next day, Marcus gives Jason a special device, which he has to take close to the NASA servers to make the hack possible. Judy then wishes him good luck and tells him that the world would be safer due to his efforts. Following this, he leaves the school with Leo and Haley. Meanwhile, Jackie teaches Max how to ask Emma out on a date. She suggests taking Emma outside to watch the launch with a telescope, and Max thinks it's a good idea. He then asks Emma about it and she agrees. A while later, Jason arrives at NASA with the kids. There, they meet the director, Brandon, who looks happy to see Haley around. Shortly after, Jason says he needs to use the restroom. As he heads out, he sees the entrance to the servers and forces himself to go close enough, even though the security later kicks him out. Elsewhere, Leo asks Haley if she's all right because he knows the launch reminds her of Ryan, but she says she's fine. Just as the launch begins, Leo holds her hands as they watch it together. Meanwhile, Emma arrives late and misses the launch, which leaves Max unhappy. Elsewhere, Leo says sorry to Haley for how he treated her. He says he was scared at first, but that he's now ready to make amends. Shortly after, Jason takes them back to school, and as they arrive, Emma and Max see them as they head back to their clubhouse. Much later, it is announced on the TV that communication with the satellite has been cut off. This leaves everyone surprised, and Emma leaves the room. Elsewhere, Judy praises Jason for doing a good job with the NASA servers. It then turns out that after getting close to the servers, he got help from Emma to download the satellite's data, which made the hack possible. It was also the reason Emma was late to her date with Max. Later that day, Emma visits Louis's apartment, and while crying, she says she wants to see Jason, who looks shocked. Jason then takes Emma outside, and there, she accuses him of lying to her. It then turns out that Jason told her to help him with a personal project, which ended up being something bad. However, Jason threatens to chase her out of the school if she keeps complaining. The next day, Louis asks what Emma came for, and Jason says she just had complaints about the school's facilities. Elsewhere, Judy calls Marcus to come to the cave to continue the mission. As he heads there, Brooke sees him, so she decides to follow him. However, Marcus enters the cave before she catches up with him. She still stays around and starts calling his name. Judy sees this on the surveillance camera and tells Marcus to get rid of her. Before he then does anything, they see Brooke leaving, so he stays back. Later that day, Daniel notices that Brooke is acting weird around him. He asks what happened, and she says she's worried about Marcus. Brooke then says that when she mentioned Judy and the car fire to Marcus, he acted weird and didn't want to talk about it. Daniel wonders why she's still obsessed about the case, but Brooke says she thinks there's something shady happening in the school. As she also mentions how Marcus disappeared, Daniel gets angry and says he can't let her disrespect Judy. After he leaves, Alex appears to have heard their conversation, and he wonders what's going on between them. Later that day, Jason catches Emma as she's about to leave an anonymous tip for NASA about the satellite. He threatens her again, and after a while, Max finds her crying inside the bathroom, though she tells him to leave her alone. That night, while Brooke goes near the cave to figure out how Marcus disappeared, Alex joins her. He says he noticed that she hasn't been herself for a while, and he only wanted to check up on her. She then tells him about how Marcus disappeared near the cave, and he agrees to help her look everywhere. While they're at it, a strange man approaches them. As Alex wonders who he is, Brooke recognizes him as the missing park ranger. However, the man doesn't appear to remember anything. As he then charges towards Brooke, Alex stops him. While this is happening, Marcus and Judy are inside the cave, watching them. Judy then asks Marcus if he did his job well, and he says he injected the ranger with a chemical that will make him forget everything that happened over the past few days, especially after he stumbled on the cave. The next day, Eric arrives at the school to take the missing ranger back to the office. He then meets with Lewis, Brooke, and Alex. He asks what the students were doing there, and Brooke says she saw a light coming from the area, and that's why she went to look. After Lewis and Eric leave the room, Alex asks why she didn't talk about Marcus, but she says she doesn't want to get him in trouble. Later that day, while Eric is with Diggs, Carter comes in and says he has gotten his job back. While Diggs is excited about it, Eric looks nervous. Later that day, while Carter is clearing his table, he says sorry to Eric for how he treated his friend the last time they met. He then puts a letter by his desk, and as Eric asks what it is, he says it's the letter Ryan wanted him to read in case she didn't make it back. However, Carter says he hasn't read it because he doesn't want to be disturbed by the content. That night, after Carter leaves, Eric checks the letter and finds out that Ryan wrote that there are people who could be interested in killing her to use her research for evil. She mentions that while her satellite is supposed to help predict earthquakes, there are people who want to use it to cause earthquakes. She also mentions Judy's name in the letter as one of the project managers involved in her satellite launch. After reading the letter, Eric then burns the paper. Days later, the students at the greenhouse start preparing for a party to celebrate the Eagles' recent task win. Haley calls Carter to bring her one of Ryan's clothes so she can wear it to the party, and he does so. Elsewhere, Daniel sees Brooke taking selfies with Alex. He gets angry and confronts them, so Alex has to leave because he wants any trouble. As Alex then meets Sophie, she suggests being each other's date for the party so that Daniel won't think there's anything between him and Brooke. He agrees to this, but shortly after, Parker also asks Sophie to be his date. She rejects it and mentions that Alex has already asked her. This then gets Parker angry, and he bumps into Alex to show his frustration. Shortly after, the party starts, and while everyone is there, Emma calls Brandon to inform him that there's something she'd like to speak to him about. Following this, she goes to the party and dances with Max. Shortly after, Leo climbs the stage to sing a song he wrote for Haley. As he does so, a lady named Aspen walks in and kisses him, leaving everyone shocked. Aspen then introduces herself as Leo's long-distance girlfriend, who is studying music in London. After saying that she loves the song Leo just performed, she also boasts that he has written many songs for her. Haley eventually leaves the hall and goes to the beach. Alex follows his sister, and while consoling her, he mentions that Leo doesn't deserve her. As he then hugs her, he sees Judy walking by the beach. After Alex and Haley return inside, Sophie announces that there'll be a dance competition for the couples at the party. Even though Brooke wants to join, Daniel says he's not interested. The other students then participate in the competition, which ends with Max and Emma as winners. As they receive their crowns, Jason shows up and secretly tells Emma to see him in his office. When she gets there, he says he heard what she sent to Brandon, but that he has already told the NASA director that she only wanted to know if there was an update on the failed mission. He then says he has no choice but to let her leave the school. Emma doesn't like this, but Jason tells her that he'll inform everyone that she had to go home to take care of her sick mother. He also warns her not to tell anyone about the satellite because he'd deny it and make her the prime suspect. Following this, he then tells her to pack her bags and leave. Elsewhere, Brooke asks Daniel to dance with her again, but he refuses. She then leaves him and eventually dances with Alex. Daniel gets angry and confronts him, but Brooke defends Alex. As she then breaks up with him, Daniel gets angry and throws a cake at Alex, who dodges it. After Daniel leaves, Leo commends him for what he did, but this only gets him pissed because of what the Ravens captain did to his sister. He then picks up a cake and pastes it on Leo's face. As Aspen comes over to defend him, Jackie also pastes another cake on her face. This seems to get everyone excited, and it leads to a food fight. The next morning, the students have a lot of cleaning up to do. While they're at it, Leo tries to speak to Haley, but she ignores him. Later that day, Leo then decides to talk to Aspen about Haley. However, she says she already knows, and that she thinks it's because they're always apart. She then mentions that she has already told Lewis that she'd like to take Emma's spot so she can be closer to Leo. Even though she's excited about this, Leo doesn't share her excitement. Meanwhile, Brooke and Alex meet to discuss what happened the previous night. Alex says he's sorry about her breakup with Daniel, but Brooke says she was ready to leave him because she can't be cleaning up his mess like his mom. Alex then mentions that he saw Judy on the beach. At the same spot, Marcus disappeared. Brooke thinks it might all be connected to the missing park ranger, and that destroying the evidence might have been her plan to save herself, and not Daniel. Alex believes her theory, and he asks if she can tell Louis. However, she says Louis loves Judy and won't think she's capable of evil. Alex also mentions that he can't tell Carter because he just got his job back. As they wonder what to do, Alex then says he can call Eric to help them. Brooke asks if she trusts him, and Alex says he does. She then thanks him for believing in her. Following this, they call Eric to explain their theory. He then tells them that he believes them, though he mentions that they mustn't tell anyone else. Eric also tells Brooke to come with him to the station so they can take her deposition. He adds that they can also make a quick stop because there's something he'd like to show her. Elsewhere, Marcus gets a message from Judy while he's in the cave. She tells him they'll be receiving Brooke as a visitor at the cave and that he should welcome her. Just then, he goes into a secret room where Ryan is seen being treated while she's in a coma.